I'm here today to make a statement and to answer questions concerning recent revelations and allegations concerning the First Lady's taxes and contracts. I'd like to start by acknowledging the legitimacy of some of these questions, try to provide answers where possible, or a pathway to an answer where necessary, and speak to Cylvia's current and future role in the administration. Questions have also been raised concerning my own roles and responsibilities that also deserve a response or a pathway to an answer, and I will try to do that as well. First, within the past few days, allegations have been raised concerning whether Cylvia falsified taxes. Clearly, those are very serious allegations and apply specifically to her tax returns. Cylvia and I filed separate returns I have not reviewed or did not prepare and cannot answer questions concerning her tax returns, and those questions need to be directed specifically to Cylvia. Some questions have also been raised concerning the statements of economic interest that I have filed during my first 4 years. I have reviewed those forms again. We have copies here if you'd like to look at them. And I believe that I did, in fact, report properly as required. I think questions that have come up relate to more information being provided on some reports than was required. Finally, I think it was last October, I said that if Cylvia had any future role in the administration, it would be substantially different, and that she would have no role until after the Ethics Commission has made its determination. However, these issues have become such a distraction that I want to make it very, very clear that she will have no policy role and no political role in the administration during the remaining 4 years of my term. With that, I'd be happy to answer questions.
Governor, when groups were paying Ms. Hayes consulting fees and were attempting to influence government policy, does that constitute a violation of Oregon law because they were seeking to influence your decisions as governor?
Well, as I said before, we knew there was a gray area, and we took intentional steps to try to clearly separate her volunteer activities as First Lady from her paid professional work. We're fully cooperating with the Ethics Commission, and those questions will be answered by that commission.
But in your mind as governor, when a group that's seeking to push a low-carbon fuel standard, which you yourself already favor, when that group pays Ms. Hayes a total of $100,000 and then some, it would appear to Oregonians that they were trying to influence your position on clean fuels, which is a very substantial decision for Oregonians. It would appear that she was paid in an effort to influence you.
So I think there's two parts to this question. I think the fact that Cylvia and I have some areas of common interest, climate change being one, low carbon fuels being one, measuring outcomes through metrics being another. The fact that we have a convergence of interest does not seem to me to imply that if those issues appear in my administration, that influence is necessarily been exerted. So I don't buy the basic premise. As I said before, questions concerning whether or not her activities and contracts or my activities as governor have violated Oregon ethics laws are currently before the Ethics Commission, and we are cooperating fully with the Commission to allow them to arrive.
Would you call for an independent investigation, something where the members of the investigating body are not named by you to come in and look at all of this and give Oregonians a clean answer as to whether or not laws were violated, whether or not she benefited from her position as a public official, and whether or not you, since you share a household with her, benefited from the consulting fees that she was paid?
So the answer is I still don't believe that that's necessary. You know, I've been doing this for a long time in the state, since 1979. I have served 14 years in the legislature, 8 years as Senate President, 12 years as governor. And actually the standards I set for myself in the office are actually quite high. I've had one ethics complaint filed against me in the closing days of the campaign, and that is being considered before the body that is charged in statute with gathering facts, drawing conclusions, and taking whatever steps they think are necessary.
So if you are found guilty of an ethics violation, would you consider resigning?
I'm not going to consider resigning, of course not. I was elected by the people of the state to do the job, and I intend to do it.
Has anybody in your office talked about
resigning?
resigning?
Governor, did you instruct Bounty Reed to loosen the ethical guidelines for Cylvia? Did somebody in your office instruct Bounty to loosen the guidelines for referring to her title and the use of Mahonia Hall?
Governor, your own attorneys instructed you that you couldn't go around giving speeches as governor of Oregon. You could do it under your own name. Why would it be that it would be appropriate for Ms. Hayes to go and give speeches presenting herself as a policy advisor to you and as an energy advisor to the governor, using her First Lady title, when your own attorneys had instructed you not to do it?
So this may begin to sound like an interview with Marshawn Lynch here, but as I said before, we have taken steps to try to draw that clear separation. That was our intent. And the Ethics Commission will make a determination concerning whether or not we're successful.
So you're saying you had no knowledge of these payments? Is that what you're saying?
Which payments are you talking about?
Of the over $100,000 in payments to Cylvia Hayes in this latest contract that's come to light.
We have reported on our SEI forms and are required to report income of a household member that exceeds 10% of the total household income. Her contracts are with a company, 3D Strategies. And the ethics form, if you look at it, requires you to mention the company, not specific clients. And we've mentioned 3D Strategies in each of the 3 years, 2011 and 2012.
Governor, why isn't she here with you today?
She is traveling in Europe on a personal and professional trip.
Governor, have you been blinded by love? Why or why not?
I am in love.
Have you been blinded by it?
I do not believe that I've been blinded. I'm wide open, eyes wide open.
Is the marriage still on?
The marriage is still on.
Governor, have you ever used...
Conflict of interest form for your office? When did you institute the conflict of interest form in your office?
When did we institute it?
Yeah.
Well,
The beginning of your third term?
We did 3 conflict of interest forms. I believe that are Energy Foundation, Demos, and
Resource Media.
And we felt that those could potentially be conflicts, and so we had some public.
Why not those contracts you had in 2011?
We didn't believe those constituted a conflict of interest.
Governor,
Have you ever used... Lars, let me just say it. Governor, have you ever used the authority of your office or attended a meeting to benefit Cylvia Hayes' career?
No.
Okay, so 2013, you went to Bhutan with Lou Daly from Demos. For the preceding year, you and Cylvia Hayes had been in close contact with Demos and with Lou Daly. You went to Bhutan during the middle of a legislative session. When you returned, Demos awarded Cylvia Hayes a contract. So are you sure that you didn't go to Bhutan to benefit her career?
I'm absolutely sure.
How can you say that?
It's very easy. I'm absolutely sure. I went to
You
Bhutan.
went to Bhutan lending your name and the credibility of your office to Demos. They rewarded Cylvia with a contract.
So you can draw that conclusion, and I suppose the Ethics Commission will take a look at this as well. But let's talk about Demos. Let's talk about the GPI position. I became aware of the shortcomings of the GDP, which the GPI speaks to replace in 1968 in the suites of Robert Kennedy gave at the University of Kansas. My interest in using metrics to measure outcomes started in 1989 with the passage of Senate Bill 170 to create the Progress Board, and Governor Goldschmidt created something called Oregon Shines, which tried to measure a set of economic and environmental and social outcomes. We set up the Progress Board. When I became governor, the legislature allowed the sunset to take effect. I recreated it by executive order. When I was elected in 2010, I spoke very directly to the need of a 10-year budget and a set of metrics that allow us to measure outcomes, which is essentially what we've been doing. I was involved long before I ever met Lou Daly or even Lou Hayes.
You said in your statement at the beginning that legitimate questions have been raised. What mistakes do you think you have made in all of this?
As I said, our intention has always been to try to navigate this undefined role as First Lady and voluntary activities that are associated with that, and the paid political professional work that Cylvia was engaged in. We have tried to do that, and we've had, as you know, number of complaints filed with the Ethics Commission. And their job is to ascertain whether or not we were successful.
Governor, in light of that, why was it ever appropriate to allow somebody that you're closely associated with to operate a private consulting business out of a state office? And as governor, would you ever allow any other state employee to operate a private consulting business using the resources of a public office?
You know, as I said, Lars, once again, we've taken steps to try to draw that delineation between the professional part of her life and her role as First Lady. And whether or not we are successful will be determined by the Oregon Ethics Commission in a process that's set up by statute to do exactly that.
Do you consider a law firm that, to defend you, or it's a personal law, a private law firm that also lobbies for the state of Oregon? Why did you do that?
Well, it's a civil legal proceeding, and I wanted someone to represent me.
You don't find that as an uncomfortable relationship that they're also working for the state of Oregon?
I don't.
Governor, can you tell us where Cylvia is today? Who paid for her trip, and what, if anything, she's doing for the state of Oregon?
She is doing nothing for the state of Oregon. She is in Sweden on her own expense, visiting some friends, and then she will be traveling to Berlin to attend a meeting of the same group that funded the trip to Bhutan. It is funded by the government of Germany. You know, state resources have been used to plan or pay for it.
Governor, do you consider
federal taxes? Do you realize how serious those kind of allegations are? And at what point, as governor, thinking these are serious allegations, and as a boyfriend and a fiance, do you pick up the phone and say, "Hey, Cylvia, did you claim this money? Have you done that in the last week?"
No, I have nothing else to say on that issue for taxes.
Do you consider her a member of your household, Governor?
Sorry?
Governor, do you consider Cylvia Hayes a member of your household?
I have no idea whether she is legally a member of my household, and I think that's a question that the Ethics Commission is going to look at.
For 4 years, you have filled out statements of economic interest listing her as a member of your household. So what's changed?
Well, nothing's changed. We, as I said earlier, have operated under an abundance of
Well,
caution.
so how can you not answer that question today? For 4 years, you filled out that form listing her as a member of your household. Is she a member of your household or
We
not?
also, I don't know the answer.
Well, why did you fill the form out for 4 years saying that she was if you don't know the answer?
Because, as I said earlier, we tried to use an abundance of caution in areas that we weren't clear on. For example, there's no legal definition of First Lady in the statute. I think most people consider her a public official. But the determination of whether or not she's a public official is a legal definition, as is the question of whether or not she is a member of the household. And we were trying to err on the side of caution and transparency.
Do you and she still?
On those same SCI forms, it asks you to break out where you get income that's more than 1,000. Number 7 specifically, how come you didn't do that for the same County Development Center or DEMOS?
We did not believe that those represented conflicts of interest or not required. If you look at the form, it requires you to do 2 things. It requires you to report income that is 10% or more of the total household income. And it specifically says in the form that that is to business, not the individual clients. So that's not required.
But on question 7, it says anything in the aggregate amount of 1,000 or more.
If, you do rest consents,
Right.
if those companies are doing business with or have a legislative or administrative interest with the state of Oregon, we don't believe they did.
You don't believe that the Clean County Development Center was being paid through Energy Foundation and its role in the renewable energy area did not have administrative.
We did not believe that a CDC had a legislative or economic interest in Oregon. It is a not-for-profit that's financed through foundations.
Have you been contacted by the FBI?
Governor, did I understand you correctly that when these latest allegations came up by our friends in the Oregonian that she did not report this money on her income taxes, that you did not ask her about that?
I have nothing to say on the issue of Cylvia's taxes that I had already said.
Governor, if the Ethics Commission determines that the laws were broken, and if Ms. Hayes received monies because of her role as a public official in an attempt to influence Oregon policy, how do you go about setting that straight? How do you rectify that? Because paying the money back wouldn't necessarily do that. If influence has been bought from your office, how do you set that straight?
Well, the Government Ethics Commission has a process and has a series of sanctions that have been taken. And we will obviously, and have been, complying and cooperating with the Commission, and we will embrace whatever decisions and sanctions they feel are.
So you pay a fine and move on?
We'll find out what they conclude.
Governor, would it be appropriate for Cylvia Hayes to contact state employees on behalf of her clients?
As I said, we have attempted to draw a very clear line over the last 4 years between her state professional work and her volunteer work as First Lady. Whether we were successful in that is a question that will be asked by the Ethics Commission, and I expect that might be a question that they're going to ask
But
as
do
well.
you believe it was appropriate for her to contact state
I believe
employees?
that it is an appropriate question for the Ethics Commission to address.
So
Are you
Governor,
attempting
this
to
has
reach
to
the settlement
deal with the Oregon Ethics Commission company?
I'm not going to talk about that.
Governor, this has to be really hard on your relationship because you're getting constant allegations, accusations. How do you keep it together? And do you have any regrets about entering into a relationship, knowing what you know now?
I have no regrets about entering a personal relationship with Sylvia Hayes.
Governor, you and Cylvia Hayes retained Steve Janik and Jim McDermott of the Ball Janik Law Firm to represent you. Do they still represent both you and Sylvia Hayes?
They do.
Have you received a discounted price from the Ball Janik Law Firm?
No.
Governor, did you direct your in-house attorney to rewrite state documents to ease ethical limitations for your fiancé?
Does Cylvia Hayes have any plans to pay Janae Bain back $15,000 that she was owed?
That's a question I'll have to ask her.
We'd love to ask her, but she doesn't seem to want to appear. Do you know, will she appear?
I'll have to ask her.
Governor, a couple of months ago, less than a month ago, the former governor of Virginia went to prison along with his wife for what seemed like very similar reasons, taking favors from somebody in private business in an apparent attempt to influence the governor or to use the governor's aura to be able to get more money. This seems very similar. What's the difference?
Well, we have been brought before the Ethics Commission on several complaints which are civil in nature. We have not been contacted by any law enforcement agency. If we are, we'll obviously fully cooperate.
Governor, have you hired a criminal defense attorney?
I have not.
That Hayes is working on her paid contracts the same as those she addressed as your policy advisor.
To be more specific,
I would argue that, I would ask that when she's serving the role as Clean Energy and Economic Development Advisor to you, did some of her contracts work on those same issues?
I believe the Energy Foundation did, and obviously EMOS did, and that's why we filled out conflict of interest forms.
Governor, knowing about all these allegations now, if you could go back 3-4 years, why not keep Cylvia out of your office, out of state business? Let her do her own consulting work, passionate about energy issues, we understand that, but why not keep that separate just to avoid situations like this?
Well, that was our intent, as I have said repeatedly. We saw the potential project, and we set procedures and policies and essentially tried to draw that line.
But policies clearly have been questioned. Why not just keep her literally physically out of your office so this kind of conflict of interest wasn't raised?
The question was about 4 years ago, as I just said earlier, going forward, she'll have no policy or political administration.
Will she still be consulting going forward?
Certainly, she will not be consulting on anything that has anything to do with the state of Oregon.
And Governor, you started this by saying that these were valid questions and honoring the validity and saying some of them need to be answered, and even said that some of these questions should be directed at Cylvia. Do you see an opportunity where, granted the validity that you mentioned of these questions, that your office would consider making her available to answer some of these questions?
You know, she's an independent woman. She doesn't work for the state of Oregon, and it's not my role to make her available. If
Right.
she wants to
She's a public official.
make herself available, then
But as the First
You
Lady
don't have an
of
obligation to make a
Oregon,
public official available to the press if there's this many allegations against her?
especially with one involving not
Don't have an
taxes.
obligation?
listen, I said, if Sylvia wants to talk to the press,
There's a
You
lot
also
of talk,
said-
Governor,
thanks,
about
guys.
whether, Governor, there's a lot of talk about whether she's cozied up to powerful people. Do you think you've been used?